o'clock is, was Kurt, yeah, we got 6. 2, 4, 6. Laura's online, I believe.
Laura and Kurt Shervin, and I think, is Kurt Stubstead on too?
Laura is on.
Oh, Laura's on, okay. Thank you, Laura.
Okay, Shervin, so, but Andrea, Steve, and, Andrea, Steve, and Kurt, but we'd have enough for a quorum, so. Matt, had a comment before we get started?
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone who's here in person to just remember to push your microphone button, and if the green is on, then your mic is on, and just be sure to get it somewhat close to your face so we can hear you. And for the recording of the meeting as well, for minutes.
Okay, roll call. I've taken everybody here and online, but what about, you got everybody that's online other than, have you got everybody taken care of?
Yes.
Okay. Then on to number 3, approval of agenda. Has everybody got a copy of the agenda for today? And if so, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Also,
Well, I think when you ask it, they still have the opportunity to weigh in either way.
Yep.
okay,
You don't have to roll call, but
No.
okay, very good. Approval of minutes from May 18th, 2021 meeting. Has everybody got a chance to look at those and read through them?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, May 18th.
Very good. All those in favor?
Second.
Aye.
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 We have a set of meetings, minutes to amend from April 20th. And for your information, it's on page 11. The conditions 10 and 11 got left out of the previous ones from last month. When we approved it, that got missed. So we need to do an amended minutes for April 20th with, like I say, I'll look on page 11.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, they're up on the screen as well.
Oh, they're up on the screen.
Yep.
Right there. That's what you're voting to amend. Everybody understand that? For the people online too, it's on page 11 of the packet, and the other would be 23 of 55 at the bottom corner. It's 10 and 11 at the top.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes.
Joel seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved.
You have to ask if any opposed. Don't forget to ask any
Is
opposed.
any opposed?
Gotcha.
I'm so used to on those that they're right. Okay. Citizens to be heard. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak to the board on anything that is not on the agenda tonight? Anything that is not on the agenda tonight? Anybody want to speak to what's not on the agenda? One more time. Anybody want to speak for not on the agenda? Hearing none, let's go to public hearings. The first one is BRD Dog LLC, request for conditional use permit. The applicant is seeking approval of a conditional use permit for the commercial storage business on parcel 21.033.3000 in the southwest quarter of section 33, township 139N, range 48W, Moorhead Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Clarify that one.
Just ask them to clarify.
Did you clarify, who clarify that? You meant to open, approved, right? Who came in online? Kurt?
Kurt Shervin, was your motion to approve opening the public hearing?
Gotta slow-
Yes.
Thank you.
Slow down a little bit and give a little bit of time to get through. Public hearing is now open. Matt, would you please give us some details on this one?
Yep. This is a request for a conditional use for a 32-unit commercial storage facility. The subject property is zoned Urban Expansion District Tier 2, and this use may be allowed by a CUP. The property is about 147 acres. It's currently tilled. There are no structures on site. If approved, the applicants would parcel off about 10 acres of that 147 acres for this commercial storage facility. So it'd be in the southeast corner of the current parcel, adjacent to the railway. So just south of Moorhead, in Moorhead Township. And this yellow square is roughly what the parcel would be. So policy considerations, just first off, a general goal from these are goals in our current comprehensive plan. General goal number 1 is to maximize the potential of Clay County as a thriving center for ag, business, and recreation while maintaining and enhancing livability. Land use goal 4, plan for the orderly, efficient growth of commercial and industrial development in the county through the application of appropriate zoning districts regulation. And that includes policy to encourage commercial and industrial development which do not need public sewer and water to locate within planned urban growth areas with adequate road service. And then land use goal 5 is planning land uses and implementing standards to minimize land use conflicts. So encourage the location of commercial and industrial development in areas that avoid adverse impacts on residential areas. So per our county use table, that commercial storage facilities aren't allowed use in the Urban Expansion District Tier 2. The city of Moorhead adopted an update to their comprehensive plan in 2016. And so the site is located within the growth area plan as zoned mixed use. So it's not an approved use technically within their comprehensive plan, but reached out to the city of Moorhead and they stated they have no issue with this request. And Moorhead Township doesn't have an opinion one way or the other as well. I know the Moorhead Township Chair, Kevin Martin, is on, so we may be able to speak to that a little more. So that is essentially where the proposed location is right here. And that purple is the mixed use, and then this yellow is low-density residential. So just some pictures of the site. This is looking north from County 12. Got the railway on the east side. There isn't an access right now. And I should state that this is considered to be, in terms of soils, prime farmland if drained. So if the board, or if the commission approves this request, below are some recommended conditions. No outdoor storage shall be allowed. Days and hours of operation shall be 24 hours, 7 days a week if it's a self-storage type facility. They would need to obtain an approved access permit from the highway department. If their project is going to be over an acre, or it's going to disturb more than an acre, they would need to get a construction stormwater permit from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. One thing that the planning department would like to see is a detailed site plan for how the site would be used. They would have to get a conditional use permit from Moorhead Township as well, and then any other conditions that you would deem necessary. Any questions for me at all?
You had said it was prime farmland if drained. Is this drained?
That I do not know. I do know, though, too, that it's in the Moorhead, City of Moorhead's comprehensive plan is they're planning on, at some point, developing, building out, if they can, to Highway 12 to the south.
Kevin Martin, Moorhead Township here. That is very well drained. It is some of the best prime farmland around. That's why I question the placement of it. I mean, we don't have any objections to it. but
Wait
it's
wait
just
till our
like, why would
comments.
it
We're
be there?
talking amongst ourselves first. We'll come to public comments later. Please hold your comments for then. Anybody got any questions for Matt at this time? Good?
Just have a question on, so has Moorhead talked about 20th Street and is that identified as a future arterial growth? And if so, I know along the railroad, I think it's Simplot is it Simplot that's north? Have they, do they have setbacks for that property as if 20th Street were to expand south? And if so, would that make sense for us to make sure that any restrictions mirrored that? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I would have to look into that further, but I think that that's something I can talk to the city of Moorhead about.
Any other questions for Matt? Here are no questions for Matt. Would the applicant like to speak to the commission at this time? Please step up to the mic and state your name.
David Carlstrom. I own the land, and also on that land, if you go north, there's highline wires running through, and the city of Moorhead, I think it's a year and a half or 2 years ago, bought land from me there also for something in the future. We don't know. They just said, we're gonna buy it and have it. So as far as this, in the scheme of the farming, how the Bird Dog LLC, we've been looking at laying it out, so it doesn't affect, I rent the land
Yep.
also. So we're looking at setting it up so it really doesn't affect the farming. I mean, in the scheme of farming, that's not much land.
So can I ask a question? So Moorhead bought basically the buffer underneath the high wire.
Yes.
For the whole length. Okay, so then that explains. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? And it's drained.
Anybody else have questions for the applicant? Okay. Now we'll come to public comments. Does anybody in the audience want to speak for or against the proposal? Anyone in the audience? I see a hand up. Please stand up to the podium and state your name.
My name is Gary Urine. I live at 2865 35th Street, South Moorhead. I'm the president of Our Redeemer Lutheran Church. We own 10 acres that is just northeast of this quarter. I'm not really for or against this. My question is, where would the access to this come from? And is there provisions for security in the future? Because we have no plans at the current time, but we recently got a new pastor. It's one of the things we're going to be looking at is what we do with our 10 acres. And we're hoping to be able to build something there, whether it's a daycare or a new church or whatever. And the more commercial stuff that goes in there, and the more traffic there is there, especially close to our property, the more difficult it becomes for us. So are there any plans for where the access to that storage is going to be?
I think that's a question for the applicant. We'll have to get the applicant back up here to answer that question.
And also for security for the whole property, are there going to be fences around it and so forth?
I'm assuming there's going to be fences. Yes, it'll be well secured. It'll be right off County 12, right next, at whatever the leeway is that the railroad wants. We'll put just an access road right there, so it's,
Is it also gonna be lit at nighttime?
yep. And it's a nice spot as far as concerns like that, because there's, as you know, there's tons of traffic on that road. So if it's well lit, you know, it'd be really easy to see if somebody was messing around.
Just to answer the one question, not for you, but Jerry, or Gary, sorry. We typically require that fences are required, and also well-lit as noted, but there's I'm forgetting the avenue now, south of the Azul property, that there's a storage facility as well there, and this board permitted that and made sure that there was fencing around that. So if you're familiar with that area and have seen that, that's typically what the requirements are. No, it's important.
Anybody else want to speak for or against the proposal?
There's a house straight west all the way to the next corner. And that gentleman contacted me last night and asked me about it, and I explained to him what it was. And he said, well, he goes, I have no problem at all then with this going in.
Thank you. Earlier, there was somebody talking online. Would they want to come back and make comments at this time?
Kevin Martin.
Yeah, that was the Moorhead Township Chair, Kevin Martin. Kevin, I don't know if you're still there, want to have anything to add?
Sorry for talking out of order earlier. I was just saying that we don't have really any objections and the land is well drained. It's very prime farmland, so that's it.
Any other comments?
Did you say Dave Overwell was on?
Yeah,
In terms of,
He was, but he just told me he had to step away for a minute.
sorry, I
He
was
knew
just,
you were going to ask a question. for him, so.
you know, as we talk about on and, or in and out of the property, just wanted to make sure that the highway department's wishes were noted in terms of what the setback would be. Obviously, there's the railroad there, and making sure that it doesn't impede the visual part as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think it would be definitely, they would have to obtain an access permit before any building permit could be approved.
we have to have access before they can build.
Yep.
Sure. Anyone else in the audience have a comment for or against the proposal? Anyone have any questions, any more questions for Matt? Applicant, or any more questions at all? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion to, and a second to close the public hearing. For the online people, we're going to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Facts and findings for this location. Number one, effective use. In granting a conditional use, the planning commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants and surrounding lands, existing and anticipated land uses. Traffic conditions, including parking facilities, on adjacent streets and land, and the effect on agricultural usage and values of property and scenic views in the surrounding areas, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans. Use and enjoyment of other property. The conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. Development of surrounding property. The establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. Adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, and off-street parking and loading spaces. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, noise, dust, and vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs or other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. The use will not create an excess burden on parks, schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewers, and storm sewers and other public facilities or utilities which serve or are proposed to serve the area. The use will be sufficiently compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural zoned or used lands so that the existing homes will not be depreciated in value and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land. The structure and the site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect on adjacent residential properties. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and to the existing land use. In the case of floodplain areas, the proof that the location is necessary for facility operation and that alternative sites not susceptible to flooding are not available. The use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, if any, of the township, city, or county. The use will not cause traffic hazards or congestion and in floodplain areas as access during flooding for ordinary and emergency vehicles. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade brought about by intrusion of noise, glare, or general unsightliness. Time for some discussion. Anybody got any comments on this proposal?
My concern in terms of what future arterial growth was seemed to be satisfied with the fact that Moorhead has already purchased, seems like the right of way on that. And certainly feels like while it would be sacrificing prime farmland, a benefited use, a great location for something like this.
It would be better probably if there was a bit of more plans, so you had a better site plan and a drawing of the, well, how big is the building gonna be? Where's it gonna be, you know, that would have been a lot of help. This is pretty much just a blank picture here. It would have been better, more beneficial for everybody to see if we would have had a better plan, site plan for here. That's my biggest question here, because you're gonna approve something, but we don't really know what we're approving. We're approving a building, but what kind of building, what's it gonna look like, how tall is it, you know, what's the dimensions of it? It's gotta fit within a certain impervious setting for the square foot of the location. Some of that stuff, to me, should have been brought forward now. That's a big concern of mine at this point. Not going to say it's a bad thing, but I think this is a very incomplete application. That's my opinion on that one. Anybody else have any comments?
Matt, could you put up the 1 through what, 8 conditions on the screen, please? Because you only have 1 through 3 in our notes. 1 through 7.
So in terms of Bill's question, number 5, a detailed site plan has to be approved by the planning and zoning department. And so I understand what you're saying, but in all applications that we get, there still needs to be another level of permitting that happens. And I believe the oversight will then happen there. You'll have to follow the regulations in terms of size and scope for that. But, you know, in hearing the concerns from the church, I think it's important to look at the last page in our packet on the proposed future land use that the city of Moorhead has for their southeast and southwest growth areas. And if I'm hearing right, that the church is in that northwest quarter of the same section approximately, that area is planned for growth for low density residential with some sprinkling of a moderate density mixed residential, but then along the commuter corridor is planned for some mixed use. So it certainly would fit. There would be a buffer if the church decides to add in a daycare or church later on down the road that would be surrounded by neighborhood dwellings, but then along the road there, this would fit for the use, I think.
There is a daycare too, is right on 75 there, right?
Yes.
Is that about a half mile south of County Road 12 or north of County
Yeah,
Road 12?
that's north,
Yep.
north of the bus garage even, I believe. Yep, Dave. Can Dave? So it would be the corner of a mile north,
No.
correct?
They're in the,
So that's Simplot, correct? So go to the corner, bottom left corner of that section down there,
That's Moorhead Public Service.
okay? Yep. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, good clarification though, I think. Sure. Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's right here.
Right, so you're a mile and a half out. Not a mile and a half.
3/4 of a mile.
Yep, sorry. Yeah. Oh.
any other comments? I think you pointed out that in those conditions there, some of the questions get answered.
Yep.
Most of the questions get answered. They have to have all that detailed information into Matt before they can.
I'll make a motion to approve the CUP with conditions 1 through 6.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for conditions 1 through 6.
The only clarification I have on that is typically there's some sort of fencing requirement. Is that in your building permit?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But you could add the lighting in there too if you wanted. Just a fencing and lighting.
I'd like to amend my motion, if Steve is all right with it, put number 7 as lighting and fencing.
Steve, in a second? Okay, so we have a motion to 1 through 6, and then number 7 would be to adequate fencing and lighting, right? Was that the words you want to use?
Correct.
Everybody understand what we're voting on? 1 through 7, the 7 being fencing and lighting. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Be none. The motion's passed. CUP will be issued. Thank you. On to the next one, which is Westland Materials LLC, request for interim use permit. The applicant is seeking approval of an interim use permit to allow a 39.5 acre gravel mining operation on parcel 17.012.4000 in the southwest quarter of section 12, township 141N, range 45W, Keene Township. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So move.
There's a second.
I second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Kurt? Those opposed? Public hearing is now open. Matt, could you fill us in on this proposal, please?
Yeah, so this is a request to open a 39.5 acre aggregate mining operation in Keene Township. The property is located kind of in between Ulen and Hitterdal to the west. It's a 160 acre parcel. Current use is pasture. There is a feedlot on the property as well, registered feedlot on the property, but I don't think there are any cattle in there since last year. I want to say an applicant could probably clarify that when the opportunity arises. This property has a lot of zoning going on it. It's zoned Ag General, Resource Protection Ag, Special Protection Shoreland, and General Floodplain zoning. So the proposed use is an allowable use as an IUP in the Ag and then in the Resource Protection Aggregate zoning districts. So primarily the kind of this area of the parcel, the southeast kind of corner of this quarter. Oh, and I should add also resource protection biological. I think I missed that one. That's the green, so. Some policy considerations from our comprehensive plan. Land use goal supporting long-term protection of agriculture in the county. Planning, land use goal 5, planning land uses and implementing standards to minimize land use conflicts. Particularly with this request, looking at policy 3, requiring adequate buffering and landscaping for new mining operations when adjacent to existing residential areas, as well as when an existing operation expands or is modified. Require phased end use reclamation plans as a condition for gravel mining permits so areas are reclaimed as they are done being mined. Natural resource goal 1, identify, protect, and preserve the county's high quality natural, scenic, cultural, and open space areas. The policy pertinent to this request is policy 19 is balancing the preservation of native prairie areas with mining of county's gravel resources. So request is to open a 39.5 acre mining operation, includes excavation, screening, occasional crushing, stockpiling, berming, all that good stuff. So this is the proposed pit here, this red hatching. This has been, basically this proposed pit does include all of the setbacks from property lines, from the closest residence, which is just to the south here, and then from road right-of-ways, and then also a typical condition that we have is 100 feet from the Resource Protection Biological Zoning District as well. And that would keep things out of the floodplain also. So as I mentioned before, it's a former feedlot, current feedlot, I guess, residence. Felton Creek runs east to west through the property. There's two accesses on the property. They both go to County 33. There's a barn and sheds and a house on the property. Everything, I think, would be removed except for one shed for storage. There are also 5 gravel operations kind of in the area and one residence to the south. So you can kind of see this is where the other operations are located. Most of them are to the south of this proposed one along County 33, which is a paved road. So the mining plan, excavation will occur intermittently as materials needed for fill sand in Class 5. The plan is to begin south and move north towards the road, northeast. Crushing and screening and stockpiling would occur on site, but crushing is anticipated to occur no more than 2 times per year. Don't anticipating any dewatering or washing. The estimated depth to the water table is between 20 and 60 feet. That's indicated by boring tests done by the applicant. The applicant does not intend to mine below the water table. 2 employees would work on site. The applicant is anticipating traffic of 8 to 10 trucks per day with up to 50 on peak days. And the average daily traffic on County 33 is about 530 vehicles per day. The anticipated life of the pit would be 20 to 30 years. And the hours of operation requested are April through December, Monday through Saturday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. But April through December, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for things like crushing. So no like crushing on Saturdays, for example. So this is essentially the plan, just kind of starting here with the fill sand and then moving north and then north and east as they go along, and then stockpiling or berming on the outside here. Environmental considerations. So Felton Creek is a designated trout stream, meaning it's a colder water stream, so it's hydrologically influenced by groundwater. That's why water is typically colder. I don't know when the last time anyone ever caught a trout in there was, but it's very, very impaired, not on this stretch of it, but further downstream. And the main impairment is temperature, so I'm assuming temperature shot up and killed all the trout. Yeah, they can't live in that warm water. Much of the property outside of the proposed mining area is zoned resource protection biological, just because there's a biologically significant shrub swamp habitat. And then the riparian area around Felton Creek is just a floodplain. And it's general floodplain, meaning there hasn't been any engineering studies or modeling to determine essentially base flood elevations, where a floodway versus a floodplain fringe would be, things like that. For mitigation, the applicant would need to obtain NPDES and SDS non-metallic mining and associated activities permit from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Because it's next to a trout stream, and this is in state statute, they're probably going to say you're going to have to do some additional best management practices on the north end of the proposed pit. That would include stabilizing exposed soil, putting in sediment basins, maybe even a permanent stormwater treatment system. Those are all things that the state would have to decide, so no bearing, I guess, on, but just kind of informational. Mining activity should maintain a 100-foot buffer from resource protection biological. Also, just because Felton Creek is, again, primarily groundwater influenced. And this is something we've done in other mining area, for other mines that are near more environmentally sensitive features, is to do a 10-foot buffer from the groundwater table, just to prevent any unintentional dewatering, contamination, or temperature impacts to Felton Creek. And then also to avoid potential impacts to any neighboring wells. And then County 33 is paved, but any dust issues, just having the applicant do dust control. For wetlands, I think just based on looking at the national wetland inventory, things look pretty good from where the applicant proposes to mine in terms of minimal to no impacts to wetlands. There's native prairie nearby, but there isn't any native prairie, known native prairie of significance on the property. The reclamation plan, the excavated area is going to be sloped. I don't think there's going to be any high wall benching or terracing. Oversized materials and topsoil would be spread over the site. And then the reclaimed pit would be returned to pasture, and the operator would maintain seeding and erosion control until grass is established. And the applicant estimated reclamation cost of 40 grand, which is roughly 1,000 per acre. Elevation, you can kind of see here, it drops probably 20, 25 feet as you go down towards the creek, drops to the northwest. And this is kind of the plan for what the contours or what the elevations would look like post reclamation. So about 50 feet lower than it is now at its lowest point. Some pictures of the site. This is an access to the north. Thank you. Yeah, to the north. This is the south access. This is essentially looking northwest, what the site looks like right now. This is looking southwest. Did get some additional comments. The highway department doesn't think there'd be a significant impact based on the estimated level of truck traffic from this pit. They recommend removing the south axis and using the north axis just to bring the property into compliance with the county access management standards, and then to reduce any impacts on the residents to the south. Keene Township would just like to see operating hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. as opposed to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. A lot of the other pits in the area have those operating hours, so just to keep them consistent. Proposed conditions, here's 1 through 8. Operating within the provisions of our ordinance, controlling dust, providing proof of the state permits. I think the NPDS, SDS would definitely be needed, but any other permits as required as well. Just contacting clay, soil, and water just to see. I don't think there will be any issues with wetlands, but just a good check. Maximum of 38 acres be approved for mining operations, as opposed to 39.5. Essentially, when you look at all the setbacks, you can't really get 39.5 acres for everything anyway, so I think you can get like 37.5, so, yeah. So that, yeah, taking setbacks into consideration with about an acre buffer, that's kind of what it comes out to. Requiring the applicant to post a reclamation bond of $1,000 per acre and reclaim mined out areas. Could be ceded to native prairie, or it could just be for pasture, just a pasture mix too, whatever I guess the landowner would want to do. Providing parking, screening, lighting, drainage, portable sewer, consistent with county regulations. For mining operations, looking maybe April 1st through December 31st, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, with no noise-producing operations to occur on Saturdays. In other permits, it said this. It's also said no crushing on Saturdays, so kind of up to you what verbiage you'd want to look at. And if they need to operate beyond the stated hours, just contact planning and zoning. Maintaining a 100-foot buffer from that Resource Protection Biological Overlay District. Not doing any mining in the general floodplain district. Mining activities occurring minimum 10 feet above the groundwater table. Conforming to the access management specifications by removing that current south access and using the access to the north. Then it's be a 10-year permit expiring in 2031. And then any other conditions you deem necessary. One condition that I have is just getting that boring data from the applicant. for the groundwater. Any questions for me at all?
Just for reference on this, isn't here. Did we approve it, did we approve the gravel pit just south of this, didn't we? On the east side of the road? Couple, 3 years ago, maybe?
5 years ago.
5 years ago, maybe?
5 years ago already?
Yeah, I'd have to look.
Is that your barn there?
Mine is south of there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Hogs was the last one you approved?
yeah. Yeah. Of course, coast after how, it's just, west of there.
Hog was 2016. Coast was 15. Aggregate was 2012, and aggregate also over here was 2010. So like Haug is a little higher up, further away from Felton Creek.
Anybody have any questions for Ant?
I have for condition number 7, how would you state that? To require areas to be reclaimed to just grass mix or
Or even just pasture.
pasture? I mean, whatever the landowner deems.
Yeah.
Well, the applicant is going to be the landowner.
I know, but we gotta, if we're gonna put that 7 in there, it needs, if it's gonna be native, if it's pasture or native prairie, I mean, it should be up to him to whatever he wants. We shouldn't dictate what that.
Yeah, as long as it's not noxious weeds, which no one wants.
No, but how would you put that in words? What,
I would say in other IUPs, we've stated landowner specifications.
Is 1,000 what we've been requesting, or has it been 2,000?
we've been doing a lot of thousands.
1,000.
1,000?
I have a question for you, Matt. The pit directly to the south there has a little lake in there. Was that there, or they mine into the water?
I think they may have mined into the water. Aggregate, yeah, I think, and some of it too is when you start digging a hole, you just get whatever the runoff is too. I think a lot of that is runoff.
Well,
But I'm not entirely sure.
yeah, we're stating 10 feet above the water, and in Holly, we okayed them to dig into the water. It's kind of a gray area for me if it could be, and if the applicant would ask, or request, I guess, that's a lot of gravel if they can go down to the water or into the water. Looks like aggregate went in.
I think the difference here, Mark, is the Felton Creek. I think that's what he brought up. It's the Minnesota regulations might not allow them to go into the water.
Well, this one's pretty close.
They could go into the water, I guess, but
Accidentally, or how?
yeah, and it's basically the 10-foot buffer is almost like a margin of safety. And I know on other pits that have been near sensitive natural resources in Clay County, we've required a buffer. And so just trying to be equitable in how we do that, and balancing
We'll see what-
the need for gravel with our, I guess, charge as a county to protect natural resources to the best that we can as well.
Well, I'd be interested to see what the applicant has to say when he gets up there on that piece of the pie.
Any other questions for Matt?
One other question, the one to the south there, what is the setback from the road where they have to have, the mining or the berm from the Highway 33 there? One to the south is awful close.
Sorry, I don't know.
They got a, you know, a berm, dirt berm that's built up real close to Highway 33.
Yeah, it's 200 feet from the road right of way.
Was this aggregate pit done before that setback happened, or there's no 200 feet on the one to the
It's,
south?
let me just look here. It's quite possible. Let's see.
I thought it was farmed in between the ditch and the berm.
Oh, they could probably get a 30-foot, maybe 30-footer on the highline poles there. It's very, the applicant might know, maybe measured it, but it's awful close.
Yeah, it was approved in 2012, so that was the same year our development code was approved. I would assume, though, that it would, if I were to look at the 2005 version of the code,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have changed. I don't think so. Possibly. No, I don't think so.
We're even alive
Just
in
so we
some of
treat
these.
both of them the same, I mean, if that setback is consistent, there's no 200 feet there.
Well, if it, yeah, and if it isn't 200 feet, then aggregate's gonna have to essentially move that back.
Who's got the hammer that's gonna make that happen?
Well, their 10-year permit would be up next year, wouldn't it? If it was approved in
It's in,
2012.
it's up in 2029, actually.
This isn't part of this.
Mark,
application.
this isn't part of the application. We're going down a wormhole here.
Yeah, let's skip this. Let's get back to this property, and we can't worry about, we can't worry about other ones.
I am treating each the same, that's why I brought it up.
Okay, thanks. But let's go back to what we got going on with this one. Any other questions for Matt? Hearing no questions, applicant, would the applicant like to speak to the board at this time? Please state your name.
Steve Westland, potentially going to, for the permit for this land. I guess, we would try to obey a lot better than what aggregate has been doing along 33 and keep a 200-foot buffer. And, the only other thing I have a question of is, to the south side of that property, aggregate has been able to mine pretty much right up to that land, to the property line. And I know there is a 100-foot buffer there right now. I guess that'd be my question, if we have to obey that 100 feet then, or since they go up to that line, can we go up to their line or not?
No, you have to obey you have to come back and get a variance for that.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I just need to check too and see if they received a variance for that. Aggregate may have received a variance to mine up to the property line.
Okay, but that wouldn't affect, that still wouldn't be pertain to this property.
No,
So we don't know at this point if they got the variance or not.
Okay.
You would have to come back and apply for a variance
Okay,
to go into that 100-foot area.
sounds good.
I have one question for the applicant.
Go ahead.
Are you aware of all the conditions and are okay with them?
I am, I guess, as far as, I guess eventually after 10 years, if we notice that maybe there is a lot more material down lower than staying at that 10-foot above the water table, I think I would address that then.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I'm fine with staying above. But maybe 10 years from now, we will know more as we start mining better out of that pit. And I know there was asked about the boring logs for that pit, so I got them leaked to me by Strata, and that's not gonna be the easiest thing to get is the boring logs. I don't own a boring rig, I just know some people that work there. So, and they were people who bored it and got it kinda read to me, and that's how I got how they were hitting the water.
Okay.
So,
okay.
but I would be willing to bring a backhoe up there and dig test holes for you, but I do not own a boring rig. If needed to be, if you guys wanted to see the water table.
You'd be able to find the water table as soon as you start digging out there anyways.
Exactly, down towards the creek, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else have questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you. Is anybody in the audience that want to speak for or against this proposal For or against the proposal?
I'm Warren Dunham. I'm chairman of the board in Keene Township. We have 5 gravel pits in this township, and we're trying to be as even as possible with all of them. And no aggregate is not 200 feet from the road. And the Felton Trout Stream hasn't had a fish in it in 40 years. But our board has no problem with this gravel pit being developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak for or against this proposal? For or against? We have a young man coming.
Hi, I'm Nate Haspel, the property owner to the south. So my concerns obviously are the moving of that access to the highway farther to the north would definitely be my number one concern, because the existing driveway is footsteps away from my own, and if it's left where it's at, then 50-some trucks a day are driving towards my house, and obviously and also the hours of operation should be the 7 to 7, not 6 to 6. So that, and I just had to put in a new well pump, so it's only 60 feet down down the water. So if they're mining into the water table now, it's exposing the groundwater to contamination, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments for or against the proposal? For or against? Anybody else have any questions? The board, any questions for anybody? Hearing none?
I have a question for Matt. Is Dave Overbo back on, or does he have any comment from the highway department?
Dave, are you back on?
Can you hear me, Matt?
Yes.
Yes, I literally just walked in. I guess the only comment I had, or maybe clarification was, but that last comment, did I hear that somebody didn't want to see the the access moved to where we suggested, or maybe I didn't hear that right?
No, you didn't hear that right. He said he would like to see it moved.
Okay, and I think that's kind of what we recommended too. So do those coincide then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I don't really have anything for or against, so. Seems like that's where the gravel is, right there. At least it's in the vicinity and neighborhood of other gravel pits. I guess sometimes that's good and bad, but at least it's not brand new to the area. No other comments.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Public hearing is now closed. Facts and findings. Let's read through these quickly as I can, I guess. In granting an interim use, the Planning Commission shall consider the effect of the proposed use upon the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands, existing and anticipating land uses, traffic conditions including parking facilities on adjacent streets and land, and the effect on agricultural usage and values of property and the scenic views in the surrounding areas, and the effect of the proposed use on existing comprehensive plans. The interim use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purpose already permitted, and not substantially diminish or impair property values within the immediate vicinity. The establishment of the interim use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide utilities, access roads, drainage, and off-street parking and loading spaces. Adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, water pollution, and soil erosion, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs or other lights in such manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. The use will not create an excessive burden on parks, schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewers, storm sewers, and other public facilities or utilities which serve or are proposed to serve the area. The use will be substantially compatible or separated by distance or screening from adjacent agricultural zoned or used lands, so the existing homes will not be depreciated in value and there will be no deterrence to agricultural use of said land. The structure and site shall have an appearance that will not have an adverse effect upon adjacent residential properties. The use is, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, reasonably related to the overall needs of the district and to the existing land use. In the case of floodplain areas, the proof that the location is necessary for facility operation and that alternative sites not susceptible to flooding are not available. The use is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, if any, of the township or city or county. The use will not create traffic hazards or congestion in floodplain areas as accessed during flooding for ordinary and emergency vehicles. Existing businesses nearby will not be adversely affected because of curtailment of customer trade brought about by intrusion of noise, glare, and general unsightliness. Discussion, folks. I have one comment, I guess, and that would be in the conditions. They probably should write in the conditions that the, I guess the county wanted that, but one of the conditions would be to close the south access and use the north one.
That'd be condition number 12.
It's already in there at 12?
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect, it's in there. So that needs to be in there to, so they don't drive past this fellow's house. Anything else? Anybody other discussion? Comments?
I have a question. So on the application, it says the water table was 20 to 60 feet. The applicant stated he really didn't have direct access to the boring data. Are we going to require that gets submitted to Matt, or when they hit it, they hit it?
Mr. Chair, I might be able to answer that. So he was able to see the boring data, I think, so he got an idea of where the groundwater table depths were on the property. That might be something that I could obtain, just myself. I'm pretty confident that I could.
We don't need to.
I know a guy.
All right, you know.
Yeah, I know a guy. Yeah,
So we wouldn't need to make that a condition.
no.
Okay, that was how do you maintain it when you don't know where it is?
Till you hit it and then you fill it back in.
Yes. I see that every day.
Any other comments? About the conditions, or?
I'd like to see condition number 7, require areas to be reclaimed to a landowner specification instead of listing whatever we want to list. Just let the landowner decide what it's going to be planted back into. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve, this is a CUP, right, or an IUP? IUP?
Yep.
I'll make a condition to approve the IUP for Westland Materials LLC with conditions 1 through 13, and with number 7 being changed to landowner specifications.
I'll second that, but I just have a comment on that, is where I get a little nervous about it, and I understand what you're saying is, what if we just let it be to invasive thistle and then we've got a thistle problem? I mean, we all have spraying budgets that get zapped up pretty quick. So I get what you're saying, but I would just say.
Not native, not thistle, not noxious weeds,
Right.
or follow.
It just has to be an appropriate cover, and I don't know how you say that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get out of Matt. Or work with what is that? Where Craig Halverson works out of, what office is it?
SWCD.
He'll work with the SWCD to,
You got something
But
called
then they
pasture
gotta work
mix,
with
that's good
somebody,
stuff.
I don't know, but you'd be working with someone there, and,
but then that's why you just say
I know, that's why I said.
native habitat is
I know, but some clover is not native habitat, that,
not invasive.
no, I know, that's why landowner specifications, he's not gonna go out there and plant thistle.
You might, I mean,
Well, if thistle crop is good, why not? I'll leave my, conditions the way they were.
okay.
So you're gonna amend it and go back to native prairie?
No,
No?
landowner specifications.
Landowner specifications.
The problem with that is that now we're not being consistent to what we require other people.
Oh, we've changed that before. I've always asked Matt on that one, since I've been on here.
Well,
I think we're splitting hairs here, but I think, I mean, we also do have to, I mean, I'm not trying to be,
Mr. Chair, I think, considering where this proposed mine is going to be located, native prairie might be the best, because you can still graze native prairie, or native plants. You could even just say native plant species. In some cases, we've said landowner specifications when the operator is not the landowner, it's being leased. And other cases, we've said agricultural land or something like that, so.
Approved by the planning commission, by Matt?
By Matt. You want that responsibility, Matt?
I would just ask the SWCD.
we'd have Warren do it.
Yeah, I'd ask Warren.
Must be approved by Warren. Sorry.
We're baiting this one pretty hard.
No, we drug this one to these guys. So,
And I think before we've had, I think we've said
Just
native
say
prairie
require
or.
areas to be reclaimed to a non-invasive
species?
cover.
There, that's what I'll say.
Okay, and my second will match.
That'll work. Okay, number 7 is going to be non-invasive
Species,
seed cover, something, right?
non-invasive species.
Non-invasive species.
There you go.
Okay,
The problem is that if you don't put it in there, it's always the one you don't put in that's the problem, sorry.
The way that's written, they could put in ryegrass, which will die over winter and there'll be nothing there. It's very ambiguous.
Well, that whole thing is ambiguous. So we have a second.
we have a second. Are we done debating it whether, for, as far as amending it?
Mr.
I have one more question. Will the remaining acres, will any of this be, what will happen to the remaining land while the mining is going on? Will it continue to be pastured as it is now?
And, Mr. Chair, I do have one thing to add. With the reclamation bond, if the reclamation is not done at all, or to, whatever standards you decide, then we could use that reclamation bond to reclaim it.
Spray it off, kill it, and reseed it.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second with 1 through 13, with 7 being going to,
Non-invasive species.
okay? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same. Not hearing none. The motion's passed. The IUP will be issued.
I think I just have one final sidebar, if there are, to your point, gravel mines or other permitted, uses that are not following what they should be, if they're closer to roads than they should be, that's why you have a staff member to follow up on that. So I think you heard probably a report that maybe there's an issue and, the county has the authority to follow up on it.
Yep. Yeah, and Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mojo, Eric and I have actually followed up on a couple Recently, we're working with them and getting them back into compliance. At one point, when we don't have this might be a winter thing, but we have developed like a gravel pit inspection application that essentially will be inspecting more regularly gravel pits, hoping to do maybe like a third of the permitted pits every year. So there'll be a lot more on the ground inspection than there probably has been in the past.
You know, this was, not gonna say aggregates, because they're just so darn big and they've got so many, but, they had problems, people were having problems with the lights out there, but you addressed that. And that other one up by the Hooterites there, the weeds were growing and they weren't spraying their weeds down, so they probably do have a certain amount of not following the rules real good.
And, a lot of it is just, it comes down to information not getting passed down to people on the ground. And so, especially with those bigger companies, and so it's nothing that a phone call or a site visit can't fix.
Thank you.
I remember when we approved that pit up in Hagen Township, the prior owner and operator had gotten some encroaching.
And just a reminder, just to turn your mics on when you talk, so everyone can hear. Thanks.
Okay, on to unfinished business. Adam Altenberg for MetroCog and comprehensive plan update. Is Adam out there now?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen quick. Let's see here.
I think I have to stop presenting, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I've stopped.
Let's see here. All right, can you see that all right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you again for having me here tonight. I'm just going to jump right into it here. Like to take some time to talk about some of the key themes and issues that have begun to develop in our conversations with multiple stakeholders over the past weeks and months here. This includes going back to our first community engagement opportunities, the virtual meetings and the survey we first came out with, as well as our outreach with cities and townships, state agencies, county personnel, and several focus groups and targeted outreach that we did, all to get a better picture of what issues and opportunities people see throughout the county. With these will all be later integrated into specific goals, policies, or implementation steps that the county can look towards for guidance here in the coming years. First off, again, looking back at our first community engagement meetings back on March 23rd, had 66 participants in 2 separate meetings that day, which really just focused on listening to the community about potential issues and opportunities. As part of the engagement activities we held, we came up with 8 general categories that we thought were important to ask about. The first 4 you see here, housing, businesses, agriculture, and food systems, and transportation. I took a sampling of some of the responses that we received. So we received a number of responses about housing. Most of them positive, but the one area that I think is important to note is that it was noted that affordable housing is maybe limited in the county, and that there may be a need for rental housing in some of the smaller communities, but overall, I think people were satisfied with the housing that they can find in the county, and the communities that they live in. Next category, businesses, a lot of positive responses to that as well. Great communities, support for local businesses, good access to capital, entrepreneurs, startups, expansion. The one issue that did come up is maybe that could do a better job of telling our story, the programs that are out there that could be marketed better towards businesses in the area. With agriculture, food systems, number of comments that noted just this is a really good area for farming. It's amazing farmland, some of the best soil in the world. A couple comments did note that it would be, are there ways that we can encourage new farmers in the area? Are there programs or resources that the county could look at that could encourage potential new farmers to come in? And then just also noting that there soil erosion issues have been noticed, and that it would be important to look at sustainable practices in some areas. Next area of importance is transportation. It was a couple comments that we got. Possibility of more public transportation options, especially in rural areas for aging populations. And if there's any way to encourage more active transportation opportunities, especially outside of Moorhead. And then the comment that we received over and over again was the Heartland Trail, and making sure that that is something that can be a project here in the future. The next four here, telecommunication, natural resources, recreation, government services, and other. We didn't get as many responses due to the time constraints and us wanting to give as many people a chance to speak on some of the other issues. But we did hear about the need for broadband in rural areas, good access to natural resources, but a need to protect aquifers, more regional trails, and potentially looking at indoor recreation activities, and then just balancing the wants and needs will continue to be vital to the county. It was also noted in that last key area that addressing the needs of new residents should be important as well. The community input survey that we developed was open from February 19th to April 23rd. In that time, we received 319 total responses, about 90% from cities and urban areas, and about 10% from townships and rural areas. Survey had 35 unique questions that gauged general feelings towards the county, and then issues related to housing, economic development, agriculture, mobility, and others. So one of the open-ended questions that we asked was to explain what people enjoyed about Clay County in 5 words or less. And we tried our best to put the responses that we got into categories to see what answers sort of came out on top. So I apologize if the font is a little small here, but nearly 50% said that either the people, community, or rural small town feel is really what they enjoyed most or saw as important in the county. Rounding out the next 4 categories were nature, natural resources, good school districts, opportunities for recreation, and I got a bit of a kick out of this, but about 4% of people said it's in Minnesota, and that's what they enjoyed about Clay County. But taking this and responses from several other open-ended questions that we had, we noticed 6 broad themes really started to emerge. People in Clay County really like their communities. They see them as friendly, safe places where people really try to take care of one another. As we saw in the last slide, people enjoy quiet, rural, small town feel, and with many smaller cities still having vital amenities that are important to residents. Also, natural environment came up again and again with people speaking of lakes or at least close access to lakes and other parks and recreation areas, though people did note the importance of preserving open spaces and protecting clean water sources. Economic development and education were also areas that were praised. But in the survey, one thing we did notice was something that was repeated was affordability, including the need for affordable senior living and good, decent housing for those with lower or fixed incomes. So next here, we also reached out to every city and township in Clay County to get feedback on 3 open-ended questions. What are your challenges? What are your strengths? And what topics should be addressed in the comp plan? Of the letters that we sent out, we received responses from 7 townships and 5 cities. So looking at that last question, what topics would you like to see addressed in the comp plan? Some of the responses that we received from the townships are just looking at subdivision impacts in rural areas. A comment that received is that broadband should be installed, county roads improved, maybe looking at road grading, dust control. Being sure to note that Clay County is ag-based and the importance of agriculture. And then property taxes, the last comment that we received there. From the cities, which includes some of the smaller cities in the county, some of their comments was they'd like the comp plan to maybe look at speed limits on county roads. If there's opportunities to share property with the county shop, that was another comment we received. If there's any grant options or opportunities for cities. An interesting comment we received from one city is the idea of a countywide fire protection district. And then several comments we received is just continuing to work collaboratively on flood control measures. And one interesting comment at the end was food sovereignty. Is, how can the county support getting people access to food, locally produced food, and encouraging people to produce their own food. Next on our list was our outreach to state agencies, just to get a sense of issues, either broad or specific, that they see as vital in Clay County. Of the 6 that we reached out to, we heard back from the BWSR, DNR, Department of Health, and the Pollution Control Agency. A small sampling of some of the responses we heard. Erosion and sediment control on ag land are concerns. Flood damage reduction and natural resource enhancement are important issues that should be considered as part of the comprehensive plan. Maintaining an open communication channel between state agencies and county officials. Monitoring municipal water source supplies, ensuring resilience to drought and declining aquifer levels. Promoting or continuing to look at wind and solar energy projects as part of a comprehensive energy strategy for the area. Prioritizing the surface water assessment area for Moorhead. That was one specific comment that was received. And then the last is a general comment is that it's just considering designing transportation infrastructure to deal with increasing and more extreme precipitation events. We also held a number of personnel meetings with county staff. These were held from April 21st to May 4th. And it was really great to learn more about all the different programs and services the county offers, and just to hear about the good relationships between departments and the positive support they receive from the county commission. So these are in no particular order to the personnel or the departments we visited with. These are some potential issues that came up when we asked what types of emerging needs are you seeing, or what do you see as important in the coming years? So some of the answers included residential growth in rural areas, business retention and recruitment. Again, agriculture is going to continue to be the backbone of Clay County. Educating residents on property tax relief programs. One important one that came up is mental health needs have increased, especially with elderly populations, and realizing that this is going to be an issue that will become more important in the coming years. Another issue that came up was just recruitment has been challenging recently, and finding good staffing, and it's not only with the county, but I think a lot of businesses are seeing that in the area. It was also noted that space needs are going to be a continuing issue, especially as the county population grows. There's going to be a need for more employees. Rounding out this list here, emergency management needs have grown. It was one comment we received is that it would be good to try to emphasize health in all the different policies that the county is going to be looking at as part of the comprehensive plan here. Lack of transportation is a chronic issue. That's something that county staff has heard about over and over again, and its impacts to access to food, healthcare, and childcare. And again, affordable housing being an issue. And then last year is just more regional cooperation, and maybe looking again at shared facilities. So the last I'd like to touch on are several focus groups and targeted outreach that we did. This included meetings we held with aggregate producers and natural resource groups, as well as outreach we did with public safety and emergency response officials, as well as the 5 main public school districts in the county. A 5th group, egg producers, we didn't meet here previously, but we are looking to meet later in the season, especially when we start to develop some of these goals or policies as part of the comprehensive plan. So I think we all understand the importance of aggregate mining in to the county, and we really wanted to hear specifically from aggregate producers for any issues and concerns they may have had. One area where aggregate producers noted challenges is in permitting between county, townships, and state. It can be an arduous process, but it was noted that the county has tried not to add additional restrictions while taking into account what roads can handle in the area. Producers also noted that diversion is soon going to play a huge part in local demand. One last comment here, and we've heard this in other freight-related conversations, but that finding truckers is becoming tough and could get tougher, at least in the short term. Our conversation with the Natural Resource Group, this included watershed districts, the Soil and Water Conservation District, Nature Conservancy, River Keepers, and Audubon, Dakota. This was also really good, and just a small sampling of what was discussed in that group here includes looking and being aware of habitat loss and fractioning. It was noted that grassland birds are seeing a steep decline, and be important to look at ways to preserving that species, those species. Continuing to enhance water quality, engaging the community in science activities, and then this group also discussed extension of the Heartland Trail being important, and then access to local rivers as well for recreation. A few issues that were noted from public safety and emergency response include difficulty in finding volunteer responders during the day, adequate funding, and again, the possibility of a countywide fire department of some sort. Overall, school districts didn't have a lot to say, but a theme that we also heard in the personnel meetings is a real need for student mental health services, especially after the last year and a half. It was also noted that school districts sometimes have difficulty in determining school closures and delays with plow schedules. So if there's a chance to have better coordination, that would be beneficial. So that is a really, really quick overview of some of the outreach activities that we have been involved in to try to better understand some of the key themes and issues that will be important to address and important for the county to plan for in the coming years. Some next steps in the next month or so include our next study review committee meeting scheduled for July 12th, where we'll discuss some of the issues and opportunities just talked about here tonight, as well as finalizing the county profile, talking about a vision statement for the county, and then introductions to the transportation and land use sections that we're working on. Also, I believe that the Clay County Government Day at the county fair is Thursday, July 15th, from 3 to 7. I'll need to double check that, but we are looking to have a pop-up event that day so that people can begin to see what issues, themes, opportunities are being discussed and have another chance to add to them or provide additional comments. Also, as we work on the plan throughout the summer, early fall, our next community engagement meetings are slated for October. With that, I want to thank Matt for all of his help and assistance with all of these meetings. Couldn't have done it without him, but we'll be back next month with another update, and happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Adam, for all your and Ari and Luke's hard work on this so far. It's really, really great to see this kind of coming together and getting all this good input from different stakeholders in the plan and presenting it to the Planning Commission. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions or comments or anything they'd like to see, or keep going, keep the ball rolling, keep going forward. All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Okay, on to new business. Matt, you got the revision to the pre-COVID Minnesota public meeting law.
Yes, excuse me. So, just to kind of sum this up, essentially, starting July 1st, we're kind of be reverting to our pre-COVID Minnesota open meeting law. There were some amendments to that statute just to modernize the language, replacing like telephone with interactive technology, things like that. One of the big things, though, that will impact this commission is virtual attendance, remote attendance. And so I think from starting July 1st and onward, we're really recommending strongly that you attend in person, just because you essentially throughout the year would get 3 opportunities to attend remotely. And then,
The physician's
yep,
exception.
with like it has to be like a medical reason or something like that. It's like a waiver, essentially. If you don't have that, you would have to notice the physical location of where you're going to be during the meeting, and that would have to follow all the normal public meeting rules, the 10-day notice, things like that. So, Ezra is going to be at Mick's office. He's got to notice that he's going to be at Mick's office at the bar, I'm assuming, at 7 p.m. for the planning commission meeting. So we'd have to put the address there too. So I should also note that in our bylaws for the planning commission and for the board of adjustment as well as if you miss 3 meetings in a row, the board can make a recommendation to remove you from the planning commission. So it's, I think, strongly encouraged that unless you have some legitimate reason that you can't be here in person, that we start coming back and being in person. And legitimate reason being like a military or medical exemption. You have to have a doctor's note, essentially, and you have to give it to Bill. And Bill has to decide if you forged it or not.
Thank you. If you're breathing, you should be here.
Well, I think the reality is, we just want to make sure we get back to business. Obviously, things come up and you have to miss, and that's just the way it is. We have a big enough board that that's not as big of an issue. I think the reason this is coming down the pipe is that you can't take part in a public meeting continually without noticing where your physical presence is, and it's just a transparency piece.
Yep, exactly. So, with this, the virtual option 2, does the planning commission see a benefit to continuing to have the meetings on Teams just for members of the public or applicants who might have to travel far to make the meeting? Is that something that you all would like to see in the future going forward?
Well, my question, I don't think that there's a legal issue for that.
No.
And just from other boards, county board, for instance, we had a woman whose father died and was asking for a tax, refund, or not refund, but waiving a penalty, and didn't want to travel 5 hours for 10 minutes on the county board. So I certainly feel it's an opportunity for us to better the service to our citizens instead of making them sit, through a meeting 5-6 hours.
It seems reasonable to me, because it is pretty convenient. We were lucky to be able to be at that point in this year to have the capabilities for this.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would think they should have it open to the public if everybody else seems to agree with it.
I don't see any problem with continuing to have it. Obviously, if something comes up, then we can reevaluate. I think we have a pretty good, it's not like we have random people coming in and being disruptive. That would change it maybe.
Yeah, that hasn't been the case. So, yeah, we've been fortunate. So. Don't jinx it.
So with that option, let's just say that I was in Tucson in March on the second Tuesday, would that, if I gave a 10-day notice to everybody, would that allow me to attend the meeting remotely once a year?
Yeah,
Yep.
it would.
But because you're so dedicated, yes, we would allow you that opportunity.
Cause I could, cause a few years ago, I missed the soil and water meeting because of, I was, did my once a year, 5 days, not in Minnesota in the wintertime.
Lucky.
But, one absence isn't that big of a deal. And that's what he said, 3 in a row is the issue. One here and there is not the issue. But it does give you that capability. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and the same thing with soil and water, I've got, 8-10 hours of preparation in for what's hopefully, a less than 3-hour meeting, and then to not be able to attend or, participate because I'm 1,800 miles away, just sucks.
Can't charge mileage, though. That's the kicker.
One of our Board of Adjustment meetings here last winter, Greg was in Florida. He was able to attend the meeting. He was in Florida, but it does offer a really good alternative.
Yeah, and then with the Board of Adjustment too, it's can be a little more tricky. Got to pay more attention to quorum for that, so.
Any other comments or questions for Matt? Do I hear a motion for adjourn the meeting?
So move.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? None, meeting is adjourned.